Well, thank you, Paul, for coming down, and I say coming down. You came all this way to take my private class.
That's right.
And you brought a couple paintings with you, and I was blown away by your work. And really, you know, it wasn't just the realism that you know, that's so good, but I also love the subject matter. And we're going to show the two paintings that you brought, and then at the end we're going to show the still life that you painted in my class, which I thought was just, I mean, it just absolutely was, I don't want to say perfect, but
you can say it's perfect. I'm okay with that.
But anyway, but one thing, tell me a little bit about how you got started with painting and your history and everything.
Yeah, I enjoyed the art classes in school. I enjoyed taking some watercolor classes about 20 years ago at the museum in Boston. It was really enjoyable because I like the drawing, the color and such.
What year was this?
I don't know.
This is in Boston.
Yeah, 90 something.
Yeah, and you've been in Boston for about 30 years or so.
Yeah, a little over, yeah. So I took some classes. I did a little bit of watercoloring at home over the years, but not much. And then about 2 years ago, I took one of those evenings where you drink wine and you paint with acrylics in a crowd, and it was fun. And I did a second one, and that was fun. And then I thought, I can do this. So I started watching videos, not yours at first, but eventually I found yours, and that's where I learned how to mix color and get that right or close.
Yeah.
And it went from there.
And this was what number? You were telling me how many you've painted, roughly, and then this was.
I think this is about the 20th painting, but it's only the second one following the DMP process. The previous ones are basically not realism at all, and half of them are unfinished. So this is the first one the second one that is DMP and completed.
Yeah. Well, I just love it. Was there anything that you learned when you painted this one? I mean, you were.
I had an agenda. I did the previous one was all leaves and green, and I wanted, because greens are hard to mix, at least for me, and I didn't have any phthalo blue, so that was a challenge. And then after I did that, I wanted to do something dark, because in the previous painting there are all these leaves on its ground cover, and you can see between the leaves down to the dirt, and it's dark and it's got depth, and it was interesting, and I wanted something that was dark. So I thought there'd be some sort of depth to it, and I get to practice mixing dark values, which I felt was really much harder than the light values.
And as far as your on the composition and the subject matter and the lighting and everything else, we had talked about that earlier, and you said, tell me again what you were.
This is a cell phone picture. There are some overhead lights up here that were on to illuminate it. You can sort of see that really. But I was just going for dark. I wanted something dark, but with some kind of form in it. And I like drawing and drafting, and that was a complex drawing to.
But you didn't actually move tables around. You just
all I did was
I
sort of I got the cell phone in the right angle to cut out something very complicated right here. I did not want to paint, so I cropped.
Right.
But aside from that, no, I just wanted to get that window and the darks, because we got the sort of the full range of values.
Well, what can I say? I really love this one.
Thank you.
Okay, let's just, I'm going to just pull up this source picture here, and I'm going to just give you some criticism based purely on the realism and where you might have missed it. And you've actually, how many have you done since this one, using my method?
It's in the 20s.
Okay. Well,
probably almost 30.
And the reason the still life that you did in my class, which you've just finished, like literally today, this morning, you just finished a couple hours ago. The thing about that, I mean, I really had, I don't know that I can really say, I mean, this is a crazy thing to say. I don't know that I've ever seen anybody paint a painting that I really, in terms of just, did you paint what you see, I don't know that I can really give you any criticism whatsoever. I mean, that was I mean, we're going to get there, but my point being is that in terms of, you wanted to learn to paint with a looser stroke going forward, and now you're just doing it. And we had talked about, I said, why not? There are very few people that can paint at the level of realism that you painted that still life in my class in, okay? And you know, you learned a lot in trying to take it to that point, right? In other words, you're not doing the sergeant brushwork at this point.
No.
You're not being all brushy, but you're absolutely being accurate. And it's not verbatim. You know, you are abstract. You aren't painting exactly what you see.
There's a lot of abstract, and
Yeah.
there's no blend. Well, there's no blending as far as I can tell. I probably did blend a little accidentally, but there's no blending in that one. This is all, as you can see, sort of half blended. And
well, where I'm going, the reason I mentioned that still life is because, okay, so I don't really, you know, any commentary that I give you on this, I think you've already learned that lesson. At least you demonstrated that when you painted this still life. That's just unbelievable.
Thank you.
But let me go back and let's just, you know, this is, you know, going far a ways back for you. But really, you had mentioned that you intentionally, for instance, left the writing out on here and some other things. What were the other?
Yeah, there's writing on the table. I didn't feel like I had a chance of getting that right. I think I did. There's a couple of letters up here. This is actually a can of linseed oil, and I sort of did an L, and that's about the limit of what I could make look good. So I didn't want to do that, and I was tired because that's the last thing I did.
Yeah.
But I was pleased at the way the lettering on the cans, which isn't rendered at all, that came out okay.
Okay, well let's go on to the next one.
Okay.
All right. Well, this one was painted after that one, correct?
This one's only a couple of months old, or
So this was pretty recent.
More than a year after that.
Yeah. Right. Well, I can tell. And here's the source picture. And this was from a photograph that. Tell me.
Yeah. It's a photograph from 1962, taken in my grandfather's garden, and this pump and the water, and this was full of water. I used to play there as a kid, and it was not in '62, but I used to play there, and it's got some memories.
Yeah.
But I've got sort of the family slide collection, and I'm slowly scanning them all because I have no way to handle slides anymore. Mm-hmm. And I've got thousands of them, and I came across this one. I just liked it because it's instantly recognizable. The whole family knows what that pump is, and it still actually is in the garden of a cousin, and I'm going to give that to her.
I love the composition. It's very, reminds me a little bit, not exactly, of Andrew Wyeth's stuff. Just common objects. And even the way that you've composed it down here in the bottom with all this space, it's very unique, and yet it still works.
Well, I didn't do a lot of composition. It's a photo. This was about this wide, and the bird box was centered, and this is just wall.
I'm assuming that you cropped it down, so the roof was just bleeding in like that on the top edge?
Yeah, I just cut off the left because it's nothing. It's just wall.
This is, I thought this was great. Instead of having it the edge. So that was there, and then you've cut off a little bit on this side, and that was because you just thought it was better that way, or because you had this size canvas.
I didn't want to paint all that wall. It was really just this wide, and it had a little bush in the corner. There's nothing there, so I just cut it down. Also, I had this panel lying around, which was the right size for that crop. So it's convenience.
All right. Well, what can I criticize about this? This is really tough. I think that in terms of painting what you see, and we're not talking about a loose brushwork or anything like that,
no.
I really don't have any criticism. I really don't. I could sit here and pick this thing apart. There's some things that I like better, a lot better. For instance, this pump handle, I actually like the way you painted it better than it looks here. And I don't know why, but there's a lot of things like that. So it's sort of either or, and I don't even think... I really don't even want to give any criticism in terms of that.
There's some dimensions wrong on this spout.
Okay, well, I see. It's a slightly, okay, whatever. But what I will say, and this is, a matter of, going forward. In fact, you said that the reason you came and took my class was because you wanted to loosen up your brushwork. And then when we ended up having this discussion about that, and I should probably make a video on this, but me personally, the way that I ended up loosening up my brushwork was meeting deadlines. And so I thought to myself, and there's a lot of things that ways that we think. I mean, we both like physics. We both like, there's all these common, and I realize that you and I probably are a lot alike in sort of the way we've approached painting and the way we've thought about it. And so therefore, why don't you use the formula I did? And I think it may be, and that is go home after you've taken this realism as far as you can take it. And I encourage you to do it because you'll learn from that experience. Mm-hmm. And then you say, okay, now I've painted my 30 paintings or, whatever it is. I mean, doing this high realism like you're doing.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, now I'm going to do one and I'm going to give myself 6 hours. I'm not going to do any color checking. I'm not going to do any proportional divider. I mean, a couple little marks to see where you are and, mm-hmm. But you're just going to go for it without color checking, without just
I've done some of those.
And, well, you've done some of those prior to doing the hardcore, color checking and everything in my method, right? In other words, what I'm saying is that once you've learned a lot, and maybe you don't even know it. I mean, maybe you do. And so taking all that you've learned and then say down the road, 6 months or whenever, you say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give myself 6 hours. I'm going to give myself a deadline, and I'm going to paint this painting. And if it turns out horribly, throw it away. I mean, what do you have to lose?
Right.
And I think that may be how I would
just basically dive in and try it.
Dive in and try it. At least that was how I copied a Sargent painting, and that kind of opened my eyes a lot. And that's why I teach the Sargent class where we copy a Sargent painting, and you learn from because he paints with you don't have a choice, and that's when my eyes were opened. Yeah. But you still tend to go back to, this sort of more tight, at least for me, it's a hard habit to break. And then it wasn't until I literally had deadlines to meet where I knew somebody was coming tomorrow morning and I had to finish this whole background in an hour and a half or whatever it was. Anyway, so I love the painting. I really do. I mean, I love every one you've done. I don't mean to gush.
Thank you.
But
you should see my rabbit.
There's very few. Yeah, this is really good stuff. Oh, you see your rabbit. Was that your failure?
One of them, yeah.
Yeah.
There are lots.
Okay. Well, I always say show your best work, and hide the worst.
I think this one is the best.
Yeah. And I love the dirty colors especially.
I think that's a combination of the old slide. Minimal adjustments to the photographic image, and maybe even the quality of the printer that generated that.
Yeah,
which is not as high as it could be.
Exactly, and it's like but I think it works, and it would be very tempting for you to pump those colors a little bit.
Well, the original slide was almost completely pink. I don't know why. It's just the way it came.
Probably.
But I fiddled with it, and I got it to that, which I felt that the bricks are really the only point of reference in there for sort of an absolute color. But you can sort of see there's a blue purple tint here, and I think that's a part of the original slides color. But it looks real to me.
Wonderful abstraction in here.
Oh,
that's nice.
Tiny brush.
Yeah, but still, it's mixed up. It's not. I can't decide if it's not perfect or not, but it's almost. All right. Can we look at the last one?
Yeah.
Well, this is the still life that you have just finished, and I thought it was fantastic. It's just, I've already said earlier that how much I liked it, and I feel like I really almost can't really give you any criticism. I mean, I could just. I don't even know what to say. It's just pretty much perfect.
Thank you.
The one thing, and this is, I'm going to tell you one thing I did notice, and you're going to say, well, why didn't you tell me while I was still over there painting? And then we went and took a lunch break, and while I was setting up, I said, I noticed something. And that is that this curtain here, right, is just a little too fat, a little too milky, a little bit not quite as rich as some of this,
Yeah.
And that, so I think I like this curtain a little more than your curtain. But the rest of it, it's either or. I mean, I think I like your books better than they are in the photo. I like your glass better. I like the silver bowl. Everything is just a little more appealing to me. It's maybe a matter of taste, but I really do think that this is a step above your source photo, just in terms of the image, So anyway, so I'm supposed to give you criticism, but in terms of painting realism, I really don't have any. Going forward, you talked about getting your loose brushstroke, which we've already talked about, and I think that the way to do that is to do this exercise that I talked about, where you give yourself a deadline. You say, I'm going to paint these 2 lemons with the pitcher of water, and I got 3 hours or 6 hours, whatever you want, one day, and no color checking, no anything, and that going forward, no, absolutely not.
That's going to be a mess.
Yeah, because it would be nice if you could because a lot of times you can't color check. If you're an artist, right, and I say to you, I've got a bird bath behind my house that I'd love for you to paint, you should be able to do that, right?
I'd rather photograph it.
Yeah, well, okay. I shouldn't say should, but what I mean is as a teacher, I sort of, to give you all the skills, that's, and if you just say, well, you know what, I want to paint the rest of my life, and I'm only going to work from photographs, and there's nothing wrong. I know some people, in fact, several people who will take this very tedious method, which is a learning method, and they just keep doing it, and they're perfectly happy doing it, and they don't want to do anything else. And so it's but as far as any advice that I can give to you, a lot of your what's going to happen to you as an artist going forward is going to be things, what your subject matter, composition, lighting. Are you planning on sort of staying in the realism, or do you know where you're going with your art? Tell me.
I have no idea. I like the realism. I find it enjoyable. I like working with little brushes, but the larger the canvas, the longer that takes. I had a really long one, which is just really too much. So I like what Sargent does, in that you've got a large canvas and 80% of it is sort of a rush, and it's good, but it's a rush, and then he focuses in on the important elements and does that in high detail. I like that, the combination. I haven't developed a style. I don't look at one artist and say, oh, I'd like to be like that. I'm not an artist. I'm pretty adamant about that. It's more of a technician role. I'm following a process.
Well, I would let's take that subject for a second. You say you're not an artist, and I know where you're coming from, because in my own, even when I would teach my classes with 10 people and I'd be doing a little demo, the whole time I'm painting, I'm thinking, are they wondering, I paid money to see this guy paint, like he doesn't, and then I won't even declare it finished until I get people start. I got to hear a few, oh, that's so good, because I'm thinking, I don't know what else to do to this, and I know it looks like hell, and they're going to be, I can't believe this guy, but that's sort of always with me in terms of this weird thing that I think somebody's going to find out I'm not a real artist, right? But here's
imposter syndrome, they call it.
It may be
sort of a fear of being found out as being a fraud.
Yeah, exactly. And but I think that the reality is, if you say, what is the definition, and this is what I want to ask you, what is the definition of an artist? So is it not, in the end, you can go in all kinds of directions in trying to say what defines an artist, and there's books been written on it. But what I think is, in the end, an artist is somebody that makes artwork. How can you argue against that? In other words,
you can't.
Everything else is all opinion, but if we just come down to brass tacks, an artist is somebody who creates work. Now, do you agree with that?
I think there's more. I think an artist might make some creative decisions along the way. Composition.
Okay, but I would that may be true, but I would say an artist is somebody who doesn't make creative decisions along the way, but still produces artwork.
Yeah, either I guess.
So in other words, if I told you, I know you're probably aware of this to some degree, but in my own meeting people from all over the world, people coming from all over the world, taking my private class. There are people of all stripes, all ages, there is no common, the artists are the people who have the passion to say, I want to paint, and then they do it, and then they finish a painting. That makes you an artist. End of discussion.
I think follow through is an important part, getting to the end.
Right, and it doesn't, of course, you could say, well, an artist is, and you could define an artist differently, and everybody has their opinion. But anyway, I just think that in the end, if I walk into a house and I see a beautiful painting on the wall, it is not possible for somebody who's not an artist, you know what I mean? An artist painted it, period. So that's as far. And so then when we start trying to understand it beyond that, it really gets kind of, you know what I mean? It just goes in all kinds of directions. So are you disagreeing with me, or are you?
I'm not really disagreeing. I agree that the result is everything. I think, I don't have to wear a beret and a ponytail, and I think if you can come up with a pleasing composition and paint it, I think that qualifies you as an artist.
Exactly. I guess we've said enough.
I guess so. Thank you.
All right, man.
Well, that was fun.
We'll see.